I'm Amy Jo Martin. Welcome to the Why Not Now show. You know that thing you've been thinking about doing? Yeah, that one. Why not now? Have you ever actually taken the time to ask yourself, what's stopping me? Let's talk it through. This is your chance to give that idea the attention it deserves and take action. Each episode, I have a chat with a fascinating person, from entrepreneurs to athletes, celebrities, my parents, rocket scientists, and all walks of life. We talk through a critical time when they've asked themselves, why not now? We dissect that day or even that moment, step by step. Today, I have Evan McMullin on the show. He is a presidential candidate that you probably haven't heard of. Evan is a former CIA operative. He has also been a member on the Council on Foreign Relations, a lot of counterterrorism experience. He's from Utah. He's 40 years old, and he is independent, usually known as a Republican. He is running as an independent right now and came in pretty late into the race. On the show, we have Mindy Finn, his running mate, with him on the ticket for VP, and the strategy in which Evan chose to use for entering into this race was quite interesting. Yes, this is a long shot attempt to the presidency, but there's quite a bit of strategy involved, and we talk through that, just specifically what went through Evan's mind when he decided to run so late in the game, why, how he could win, and if he doesn't, what his thoughts are, and how he decided to make the decision. So if you can imagine, one of the ultimate why not now questions would be, hey, why don't I run for president? So he talks through that whole process. There was a 10-day period where he had to make that final decision, and we worked through that. The other thing that I thought was interesting about Evan is that recently he has been surging in certain states, specifically Utah. I know we've all seen the drama in this election on both sides, and I have intentionally kind of stayed out of voicing opinions because I've just been a little speechless, to be quite honest. I thought this was an interesting reaction from voters and just in the polls to see what happened when the Access Hollywood tape surfaced from Donald Trump and how that impacted Evan's race, especially in the Utah polls. So that is one of his ways of getting in. I'd say for the most part, the Why Not Now show has been fairly nonpartisan. I've definitely remained fairly neutral. It's not because I am frightened to choose a side. I just think at this point it's been a bit of a circus, if you will. And there's something I've been thinking a lot about lately, though, especially over the last couple of weeks, and that is finding your voice doesn't mean shouting at the opposition. It's possible for healthy tension to exist as long as there is an underlying foundation of respect that's present. And obviously, there's been a lot of missing respect in this election and the campaign process, but it's something to think about as we navigate through the next several weeks with this presidential election. The conversations we're having with our friends and with our family, you can disagree. You can have a healthy tension conversation full of intensity, but still have respect. And that's something that is actually not that difficult to do as long as you truly do appreciate and have respect for the other person. I can share that I may not agree on everything that Evan McMullin stands for, but I do have a lot of respect for his willingness to stand up for what he believes, as well as Mindy Finn and her standing up for what she believes as well. I think it's a pretty noble move to make this big of a decision to run for president. Before we get started, I want to fill you in on something that's made a big difference in my life, and that's Headspace. I'm grateful to have them as a sponsor of this episode. Headspace is a guided meditation app that I've been using for the past couple of months, and it's the first time I've ever been able to meditate consistently. I've tried to adopt various forms of mindfulness off and on for the past 10 plus years, and this is the first time something has actually stuck. And call it what you want, meditation, mindfulness. Sometimes I just call it my ready, set, pause or adult timeout. It takes 10 minutes each day, and it's helped me quiet my mind. My aunt used to say, don't let anything rent space in your head for free. That's valuable real estate. Well, Headspace allows me to become a much better landlord of my thoughts and self-talk, which is a big one for me. You can go to headspace.com/why not now for a free 10-day trial. And if you stick around to the end of the show, I'll tell you how you can get a month for free. So here's Evan McMullin and Mindy Finn, President and Vice President candidates for the United States of America. Welcome to the Why Not Now show, Evan and Mindy. How are you doing today?
Doing well. Thanks a lot. Great to be with you.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you for taking your time off the campaign trail here and joining me. So let's dive right into it. Rather than just having you answer any why not now moment and kind of share with me, why don't we focus on the current time? So please share with us a little bit about that moment when you decided to run, when you decided to campaign, and what it looked like. What we like to do is really kind of dive in and look at that day, that moment, that period of time where the decision just needed to be made one way or another, and zoom in and kind of dissect it. And Evan, let's start with you.
Okay. Well, I had been deeply troubled by the direction of the presidential campaign season, in particular on the side of the Republicans. I mean, everyone sort of expected Hillary Clinton to win the nomination on the Democratic side, but on the Republican side, I had hoped that it would be anybody but Donald Trump. I thought that he was a terrible candidate, somebody who would do great harm to our country. And so that built up over this period of many months, over the period of a year, essentially, until he received the nomination. And I reached out to some people who I knew were looking for an independent candidate to run against him and against Hillary Clinton in hopes that they had found somebody. And what I learned was that they had not been able to find anyone to do it, despite talking to senators and congressmen and business leaders and former presidential candidates. And they asked me if I would consider doing it myself. And given that it was the last minute, the last opportunity for someone to mount a serious campaign on some level against Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, I knew that if I didn't decide to do it, that no one would do it because it was just so late in the game. And so that set up a situation in which I had about a week and a half to consider whether I wanted to do this and whether it was something I could do, that I wanted to do. And then I started the decision process.
And what did that look like? I mean, is it a pro and con list? Is it really intuition based? And I'm sure having conversations with folks you really trust. But what else did that week and a half look like?
Well, the way I like to make big decisions is to, first of all, study all the factors out and try to understand all the variables as much as I can. And that's what I did. I talked to members of the media, potential donors. I talked to friends and family. I talked to people who had run for office before, people who were members of Congress. Everybody who I thought would have useful insight, I spoke to try to understand the variables, whether I could be successful, what would success look like, what could I expect. But really, as I did that, when I finished that process, I didn't get to a place where I felt I could make a decision on my own. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and so prayer is a part of my life, and it was a part of this decision too. And so the next step in my decision-making process when I make big decisions is to, after studying out as much as I could on my own, I prayed for some sort of clarity. And as I did that over that 10-day period, I had an increasing amount of conviction that someone needed to do this, that this needed to happen. And then that if no one else was going to do it, that I should do it. And I didn't have a very strong feeling about what the outcome would be. There was certainly no conviction about that. But just, again, conviction that this needed to happen. And if no one else would do it, that I should step up and move forward with it. And, I don't know if you've ever had an experience where something just burns in your heart so strongly, something that you're thinking about doing, but will be incredibly difficult, maybe beyond what you think your capacity is. But you just feel so strongly that you have to do this that you cannot walk away from it. And that was how I felt about this. So ultimately, I decided to do it really the night before we launched. I made the final decision. And the factors there were, again, my conviction that it needed to happen and the fact that so many pieces were falling into place. We built the team very quickly and got some very, very skilled and talented people on the team before we launched. And that gave me a good feeling that this indeed was something that I should move forward with.
That's very interesting, and I think very helpful for listeners to understand, from others how big of a decision this was for you, but your process in going through it. And was there at the very beginning when this question was surfaced and you were trying to find, someone else or help find someone else, and then the question was turned kind of back around on you, did you kind of know from the very beginning, even though you had those 10 days to really analyze, did you still know kind of in your heart that you were doing this?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think early on I did have some inclination that I was going to have to do this. And it had built, and that's why I told you I talked about the background of what led up to that.
Mm-hmm.
It was so important. So I had already gained a deep conviction that Donald Trump would be harmful to our country, and that Hillary Clinton needed to be opposed too, and that the American people simply deserved a better option, and that somebody needed to stand for truth and what is good and the founding principles of this great nation. And so because of that, yes, I think when the question was posed to me, I did have a sense that indeed I would have to do this.
And as far as your involvement, Mindy, when did you, I know it was recently that you were kind of officially on the ticket with Evan, but how did you two meet and how did you make your decision?
Sure. So I recently joined the ticket, but it was kind of a path of destiny. Evan and similarly, I was working on efforts to kind of work tirelessly for months to try to stop Donald Trump from securing the Republican nomination, at great kind of personal and professional sacrifice at many moments. In doing that and kind of putting all other aspects of my life and work, aside, really compromising those components, I kind of stepped back once after the convention, once he secured the nomination, and was keeping an eye on kind of the direction of that movement. I was helping with efforts that Evan pointed to where people were trying to identify an independent candidate to run like Evan and, having, I think, some more difficulty than they might have hoped. And so when Evan launched his campaign, I was very excited. I was inspired by it. I felt very grateful that he was stepping up at a time when many others wouldn't, and had been kind of offering kind of some soft support and help to the team, but kind of was trying to keep myself in check a bit, saying, you've worked tirelessly for all these months and these years, you've made the sacrifices, like maybe it's just you kind of have to let this ride out in some ways. But I kept having this instinct to help. I'd reach out to the team and kind of give advice or offer to help in certain ways. And, to kind of balance that a bit with my being discouraged that of the direction where we were going. But also being, frankly, a little sad because this was the first election cycle in a long time that I kind of wasn't in the fight in a major way. And it was right when I was kind of feeling that, we're a month and a half out from the election and maybe I was just not going to be in the fight in the way that I normally would be when Evan reached out. We had a conversation. They had been developing their list of who they might select or who he might select as his running mate. And we had a conversation and frankly, I was not at all, certainly wasn't vying for it. I wasn't even expecting to be asked to step into this role. I knew he had a specific ask. I thought it would be something else. But when he made this ask, I mean, there was about maybe I'd say a 30 to 60-second period of shock, purely because I had not imagined myself running for vice president this election cycle or maybe ever. But then this kind of sense of clarity that this is what everything was pointing to, all the work for those months, all the work, frankly, that I've done for years. I hope for years that the Republican Party would be able to reform in a way that would make it more appealing to more women, more appealing to minorities, would recognize demographic changes in our country, would recognize technological changes in our country, and get into the 21st century in that way. And it felt like everything that I kind of had been working towards was pointing to this moment. It was such an opportunity to play all that out in a productive way, and ultimately to give people a ticket to vote for that they could be proud of, to kind of do my duty on this ticket. The decision-making process, I mean, immediately, it was a Sunday, it was kind of a quieter day. We had this conversation, and it was almost like a snap in time where it kind of was something had changed. Just 30 minutes prior, it was not something I was thinking about spending my next month and a half doing, potentially longer if all goes well. And it was like all of a sudden something changed in my mind where I felt like if this came to pass, if he decided to ask me to officially join, it was the right thing to do. I talked to my family, my husband in particular, and he was really supportive of it, from the beginning, and did my due diligence. Evan and I met, we got to know each other better. I recognized this was something that needed to stay confidential and quiet. So I limited the people I discussed it with. I did talk about it, with some other family and friends, prayed about it as well. But, there was little doubt. I was almost seeking reasons for downside. I was seeking, downside, and there was always very little downside.
So interesting. And with this, I'm so excited to hear your stories, because on this show I've talked with several people, and Mark Cuban being one of the first people to come on the show, and we talked through how we attract different talent to public office. And I'm thrilled that you're sharing your story. You're definitely going to open a lot of eyes and really hopefully help others and encourage others to consider public office in various forms. Coming from the tech community, I'm often thinking, well, why doesn't so-and-so run, or why doesn't so-and-so? And it's because it's just so unattractive. But if we can see more examples like yourselves, I think it will really help in bringing another crop of progressive thinkers and just a different option, different choice. So if we fast forward, and this weekend, this past weekend, last Friday was quite a interesting just surface of information in the election with Donald Trump. And I know that, a lot of people are saying your campaign is a long shot. But after really kind of understanding what's going on in Utah, I've come to better understand kind of your strategy from what I think. So if we look at the electoral votes, and let's say Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, neither of them get 270, is that really what comes into play here for your strategy of being able to secure Utah and potentially other states to where it would come to a vote in the House of Representatives?
Yes, that's exactly right. So the closer the race is between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, the more of an opportunity we have to block them both by winning a state or two or three. So there it is. That we don't control all of those variables. Both of these two candidates the two major party candidates are highly combustible. Donald Trump has demonstrated that, especially over the past few days. So anything's possible, but right now Hillary Clinton has a giant lead in the Electoral College in most projections. And so that makes our job of blocking them both become more, it just makes it more difficult. But that's okay. We're getting a lot of traction, especially in the Mountain West and elsewhere. We're excited about that. We're going to keep moving forward all the way to Election Day. And it's not just about winning in the traditional sense. It's also about standing up for what we know is right, what we know is good about this country, and for what we don't want Donald Trump to do to this country. And I mean, it's about providing a better vision for the future of the American people, one that's better than we think that offered by Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, which, who we think both offer ideas from the past as opposed to a forward-looking vision for the country. So that's what we're doing, and we're building a movement that I think will have relevance even after the election, either in influencing the political process, the political parties, especially the Republican Party, or potentially starting something new, something entirely new, perhaps a new party.
And I would just add to that is some people have talked about this as the impossible, but you cover the tech industry. If you think about all the products that we have today that are household names that people feel they can't live without, that people once looked at and said, that's not going anywhere, that's impossible, or that's a ridiculous idea. They counted it out. Americans have always done the impossible. It's why we have the greatest innovations coming out of our country. I think we would be much better served if we had more of that innovative spirit. People have rejected or feel very dissatisfied with the two major party candidates right now for a whole host of reasons, largely to do with their own actions, but also because they see that government is broken. Our democracy is in trouble, and they are desperate for fresh energy. And that's what we hear from our supporters. It is a movement in that we are this ray of light in this sea of darkness. We are doing what's right. We feel very steadfast in that. When Evan talked about kind of having that burning in his heart that this was the right thing to do, it reminds me of the way entrepreneurs or startup founders talk about that, or artists even. There's the product they know there's a market for. They need to put it out there. We know that the American people are hungry for this change, and we were thrilled to be in a position to step up and provide it for them.
Yes, I'm very impressed and really grateful that you are pushing forward and you've stepped out. It's very noble and kind of democratized the, I think, mentality of people thinking about access to public office, but also just, I'm with you, Mindy. I've seen how quickly things can change with the power of social media, with the power of traditional media, and the combination of the two. And sometimes one is driving the other versus a one-way street. And it's definitely possible for things to move so quickly and shift so quickly because it's that equal opportunity playing field. So it's been a tough season for everyone. Looking at, I just recently got married and my husband's from Australia. This is his first time in America through a presidential election season. And there are times when I just kind of have to tell him it's not normally like this. I promise. He's so confused and he's like, wow, this is just incredible. And we just have to turn it off. And I think people have become so disenchanted by the hatred and the anger that this is definitely a bright spot. So thank you. And speaking,
well, congratulations, by the way.
Well, thank you very much. So as it relates to looking at various issues, and I did ask my tribe and friends on Twitter and Facebook and ask them what questions they had for you. And one really stuck with me, and I'd like to hear your thoughts. And this is from a guy. He's not living in the U.S. right now, but he is a U.S. Citizen. And his question was this. He said, from my perspective, the U.S. needs to make a leap from seeing itself as the greatest nation on earth to seeing itself as no more or less valuable than every other nation on earth. We've been winning, if you can call it that, at the us versus them game into the 21st century. How do we change the game to truly become a leader in a global community, to make decisions that are best for the planet and its people as a whole, not just make sure we strategically come out on top as the socio-economic level?
Okay, well, that's a good question. There's a lot there. I guess I would say that we believe that it's important for the U.S. to play a leadership role in the world. And I would argue that it's important for the world that the U.S. play a leadership role. I mean, the U.S. started to play a leadership role after World War II and after World War I. That was really when it emerged on the global scene as a leader. And we look at what's happened since then, and the world, although not perfect by any means, has seen a lot of progress between the end of World War II and now. I mean, what are we talking about? We're talking about 900 million people being lifted out of poverty around the world, out of extreme poverty even. And that's just so important that we have not had a period of this kind of global prosperity at any time ever before. We look at, democracy, for example. After World War II, there were about 14 democracies. Now there are about 100. And that's unprecedented. The spread of freedom in the world has been incredible since then. And then I would also note that although we do have wars around the world, and we've been involved in them ourselves, since World War II, there's been an absence of additional great wars. And so how did that happen? Well, the United States helped set up a system in which sovereignty was the notion of sovereignty was critical, meaning that other countries couldn't change other countries' borders through force. There was also, we established a rules-based international system. So it wasn't just that might made right, but there were actually rules for the road that everybody had to obey. And again, that's not perfect at all, but it allowed this great period of prosperity to occur and relative peace. So that's what we've done in the world, and we've made mistakes along the way. There's no doubt about it. I served in Iraq as a CIA officer, but I've said that I think that was a mistake. But we still have to lead, and when we don't lead, we see what happens. And we don't have to think back too far to see what those examples are. Whether it's ISIS recruiting people remotely here in the United States to carry out attacks, or it's Zika or Ebola or cyber attacks or economic crises overseas. All of these things can have a severe impact on us here at home, even if we choose to ignore the rest of the world. The rest of the world will not ignore us regardless. So it's important that we play a leadership role, but I think it's key that we do it in a way that doesn't cost as much blood and treasure, as they say, meaning that we have to be smarter and we have to do more with less resources. And I think we can. We need to be smarter about identifying problems and solving them before they become catastrophes. The way we've done it in the past is to wait for things to become gigantic catastrophes, and then we get involved. And at that point, it costs us so much in terms of our federal government funding and the more importantly, the lives of our servicemen and women. We haven't been very smart about the way we engage with the rest of the world. So I've got more ideas on that, but in a nutshell, it's just the idea that yes, we need to lead, but we need to do it in a way that costs us less in so many ways.
Great. I think that's going to be very helpful for him to hear, and also just looking at that definition of leadership and what it means. No, we need to start wrapping up, and I always ask my guests how you keep your mind healthy, especially with what I can imagine is a crammed schedule and probably a little sleep. How are you keeping your minds healthy right now?
Well, it is a crammed schedule. I mean, I can speak. Evan's been at this now a little over a couple months. I joined literally a week ago, but it feels like a couple months ago. It's been a whirlwind of activity, and it's been, absolutely incredible. I will say though, I mean, it's not a lot of sleep, but I've been able to rest quite well in a way I didn't expect for those few hours that it is, because I know in my heart that we're doing the right thing, and that feels really good. And I know it's important to be centered so that we can serve the best way that we can. And so that is one of the ways to ensure that we do get sleep. I'm able to sleep quite well, knowing that we're doing the right thing, and every day being bombarded with the inspiring message, the supportive messages, the cheering on that we see on social media for people who say that we're giving them hope and who are advocating on our behalf. That feels really, really good. I still try to read a little bit here and there of things that aren't directly related to the campaign, just to ensure that I'm a well-rounded person. And so, that hasn't been really too much of a problem, to be honest. It's just been really motivating and exciting every day. I also, this isn't new to me personally. I've worked on other campaigns. I've worked in other very high intensity environments. I thrive in those environments. I enjoy this sprint. And so it's exhilarating rather than, kind of exhausting. Yes, there's tiring moments. You kind of make sure you close your eyes, but but it's entirely exhilarating. So that's, I mean, we were talking today, a bunch of us on the team, about kind of sending out notes. Things have really intensified over the last few days for us as we're surging. We know that's going to continue, is just reminding the team, reminding ourselves to stop and take a deep breath, take a deep breath at times. There's going to be things that slip through the cracks, or people, aren't looping people. There's going to be times that kind of emotions, you have ups and downs. And so it's important to take those deep breaths. But I really feel good about what we're doing. I mean, I would kind of test, not that it's a competition. I hope everyone is keeping themselves healthy, but I would kind of put our campaign's mindfulness and centering kind of in competition with the other campaigns who every day are having to kind of answer for their scandals.
Great point. And how about you, Evan?
I would echo a lot of what Mindy said. I think for me, also not sleeping very much, but I've worked in a lot of very intense jobs and situations, especially my time with the Central Intelligence Agency. But really what keeps me focused now and keeps me balanced or centered is the mission. I know that what we're doing is right. I know that it needed to happen. I know that what we are doing is good for the country. And no matter how challenging things are, or how tired I might be, that keeps me centered and balanced unlike anything else.
Wonderful. And the last rapid fire questions here, we'll keep them quick, and each of you can answer, of course. What's the last book that you read, or what are you reading right now? I'm changing that to the last book you read, because there's probably not a ton of time to be sitting down and reading books at the moment.
I read a book called The World America Made, which is actually a book that talks about the role America has played in the world and the leadership role it has played, good and bad. And it's very informative. And actually, it's not that long, so I recommend it for your listeners.
Wonderful. We'll make sure to include that in the show notes and a link to it. And how about you, Mindy?
I read a book called Hillbilly Elegy by J.D. Vance. It was a New York Times bestseller. You might have heard of it. Who's is really about kind of the decline of white blue collar America, or what's ailing white blue collar America, and some ideas of maybe how to fix it. But it's an individual's memoir who actually works out in your area, out in venture capital, I think, in Silicon Valley now. But that's I'm usually reading about 3 books at a time, but that's one of the most recent one I read.
Very cool. And very serious question: pirates or ninjas, which is tougher? I don't think I've ever asked a former CIA officer this question, so this will be interesting.
I'm looking at Mindy, seeing if she wants to go first, because I'm really struggling to decide which. You know what? I'm gonna. I've studied martial arts, and I was a deckhand on a commercial fishing vessel in Alaska during college, so I felt like I was a pirate then. And I'm gonna have to go with pirates. Actually, I think pirates are tougher.
Good answer. I'm a team pirates girl too. How about you, Mindy?
Yeah, I'll go with pirates. I think mainly because my kids are into pirates, so I'm going to trust them on this one.
There you go. Got to represent. And last question: what advice would you give to your younger self? You can choose which age that might be.
Man, I'm really struggling. Yeah.
I mean, I guess I would say, maybe go back to my college self before I started a career, and I would just say, don't be afraid to be unconventional and take risks, and also don't worry so much about kind of what other people might think or what path they define for you. Although I'll say, I think I've actually mostly followed that advice. Maybe just at times was more concerned about it than I should have been. But that's pretty much. I think maybe that's what I would say.
Yeah, for me that's hard because I love the life that I've had and feel very fortunate to have had many of the experiences that I have had, both good and bad. They've made me who I am. If there's one thing that I might try to squeeze in there as advice to a younger Evan, it would be make more time, go see your mom more, make more time for your family, spend more time with your folks. And that's advice I give myself even today.
Wonderful. That's a great way to wrap up. And I thank you both so much for your time. And congratulations on what you're doing and being bold. And you're definitely taking that advice, Mindy, as a being on the ticket as VP for the United States, I'd say you're definitely out there. So your younger self would be proud too. And you as well, Evan. It's been fun to really research and get to know you both a little bit more over the last week or so. And really, I just wish you best of luck. And I hope that this isn't the last time we speak. So I'll let you get back out to the campaign trail. But thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, and I look forward to doing it again.
Thank you. This was a fun interview, so I appreciate
it. Good. Hopefully you don't get the Pirates or Ninjas question again later, because that's proprietary.
That was the best. Yeah, that's the best question I've received all day, by the way. So thank you.
My job is done. Great. All right. Take care. This episode is also brought to you by Withings. Withings invents smart products and apps that fit into any lifestyle to help you track and aim to improve your health. I've been using Withings every day for about 1.5 years now, and I am a big fan. One of the things I love the most about the Withings app is their leaderboard step tracking feature, because I love some friendly competition. Having a leaderboard has been incentive to be more active, and I've even gotten my family involved. Although my dad did try to cheat one day by putting his phone in his horse's saddle. But whether I'm competing with my friends on the other side of the globe, my family, or Dorado, my dad's horse, we're all connecting through our health goals. I just got the Withings Watch 2, which syncs to the app so I can disconnect and not always have my phone with me, but still track my progress. Withings products can track your sleep and weight too. Knowledge is power. Go to withings.com and use coupon code WhyNotNow25 to get 25% off your order and free shipping. I hope that conversation inspires you to stand up for what you believe. I know it did for me, and it's something I've been thinking about quite a bit. Now, quick recap on the kindness.org Spread Serotonin initiative. Things are going very well. We've had many people pledge to do the act of kindness, but some people haven't actually followed through yet. So if you happen to be one of those and or you want to join, please go to kindness.org and check out the Spread Serotonin initiative. Over the past week, I've had 5 people who have reached out to me, a few that I know and a few that I don't, and they've been in a similar situation. They have all been thinking about doing something differently. They've been thinking about their why not now, and then, for one reason or another, they are no longer working at the same job that they had. And that is either because that position was eliminated or for some reason they've been asked to leave. So in this situation, they are now definitely looking at their why not now a little bit more seriously and kind of forced to. And that's not necessarily a bad thing at all. And as we think about our why not nows, there's kind of an offensive and defensive side to this. So obviously the more attractive position to be in is to have a job and to be able to plan and prepare and think through your why not now, if that involves leaving and doing something else. And then sometimes we're just pushed. We're kind of forced to do it and jump into things a little bit quicker. Obviously, there isn't a right and a wrong, but in a way, it's motivating to think about it in terms of your own timing. And so if you'd like to have more control over the timing, then it's something that you want to bring more into the present, I would think. So I just thought I'd share that because literally these 5 people had a similar situation just kind of confront them. And they're all in this spot of really wanting to jump now into their why not now. But that's partially because they've been nudged. I want to hear what your why not now is. Please share it with me on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook at Amy Jo Martin. I'll send a signed copy of my New York Times best-selling book, Renegades Write the Rules, to the first 200 people who listen, rate, and leave an honest review of the podcast in iTunes. And you'll also get a free month subscription from our friends at Headspace. This is only available to Why Not Now listeners. Once you've left a rating and review on iTunes, just email your iTunes handle name and your mailing address to whynotnow@amyjomartin.com, and we'll get your package in the mail to you. For detailed show notes, head to amyjomartin.com/whynotnow. That's where you'll find links to things we discussed on the show, special offers, and how you can keep in touch with guests. Hat tip to my buddies Ash and Devin at Rock Salt Music for our tunes today. You just listened to the talented John Coggins in Let's Go and Let It Ride. And a jump high five to my talented husband, Richard Greer, for producing the show and being patient with me. See you next time. Until then, why not now?